It's time to get in the game.
What's up, team? Welcome back to another episode of the Get in the Game podcast. The podcast where we explore ways to get off the sidelines, stop making excuses, and get in the game. I'm your coach, Trevor Dean, and I want to again start off by thanking you guys for tuning in. If you haven't already, go on over to the website. It's getinthegamepc.com. You can check out our past videos, links to where you can listen to the other episodes on streaming services, different podcast services, or you can look us up on our social media. Our handle is at getinthegamepc. That is at getinthegamepc, that little at symbol, getinthegamepc. And that's the same on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. You can search for us on there. And if you want to get a hold of us, please shoot us an email at getinthegamepodcast@gmail.com. You can email us there about any concerns you have, any prayer requests, praises, anything that you want us to talk about here on the podcast. And we look forward to hearing those comments and reading those emails. Again, thank you so much for tuning in, and let's get right into today's topic. Today's topic, if you haven't read it already, is put up or shut up. And it was kind of inspired by a conversation I had with my wife, and we'll get with that later. But I first want to get off on the topic about put up or shut up is the topic of excuses versus reasons. And in our tagline, the second thing we have is stop making excuses. And the reason I want to address this is because really in life, I feel like there are very few excuses. There's a lot of reasons why something happens or why we didn't do something, but there's very few excuses. And the why I say that is an excuse is something that's excusable. Like, it's okay that you didn't do something because it's excusable. It's an excuse. It's like, I the first thing I thought of was back in high school or junior high when you have a doctor's appointment during school because that's the only time that you may have been able to go. And so you miss a class, but it's an excused miss. It's something that is ultimately more important than being at that particular period of class. And, you know, you could make the determination, if you look into it a little further, maybe you could have got something before school or after school so you wouldn't have to miss class. But the fact of the matter is the way that they deem that excusable is that it is a doctor's appointment that needed to happen, and they took time out of school to go get that done. In life, I feel like we use a lot of reasons to justify why we didn't do something. It's not necessarily an excuse. When you're late for work because you didn't wake up in time, that's not an excuse. It's not excusable. That's the reason you're late is because I woke up late or I didn't set an alarm and I'm late. But that's not excusable. It's just a reason, and it's a bad reason. An excuse would be something like, I was doing everything by the law perfectly, driving my way to work. I was at a green light going through the intersection, and someone ran the red light and hit my car, and I'm still, I then have to wait there for ambulances and all this other stuff to happen. That's an excusable reason. That's a real excuse of why I was late. Because I was on my way to work on time, and I was hit by someone who ran a red light. At that point, there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way you could have possibly, in most cases, done anything to avoid that situation. Now, if you were already late and you were hit by a car or got in an accident, that wasn't your fault. that's not an excuse either. You are already late. I mean, I hope it makes sense here. I'm trying to give clear examples of, why certain things are an excuse, certain things are a reason. Me not wanting to take out the trash because the game is on is not an excuse. The excuse just doesn't line up. The reason I don't want to take it out, and the reason I didn't take out the trash is because the game was on and I wanted to watch it. And I feel like in life, if we're going to use reasons, we expect the other person or whoever it is, could be multiple people, to just take that, whatever we tell them, and just be okay with it. That what we're saying is justifying the reason why something didn't get done, or why you've been lazy, or why you're in the predicament you're in. There's very few excuses that are actually valid in our life. So, for the sake of this podcast, I will probably use the word excuse more like a reason, but I did want to distinguish between the two. I'm gonna try and keep to a reason. I'm gonna try and keep to the definition that I was talking about. But if I do kind of use excuse in the context of a reason, please know it wasn't intentional. But that's kind of how we are in our English language. It's like, how come you didn't do this during sports? How come you didn't block this guy? Well, this and this and this. Well, that's the excuse wasn't like because my teammate next to me, as I was making the right move, stepped on my ankle and broke it, and I wasn't able to do it. That's an excuse. Oh, well, I understand why you didn't do it. But if you made a bad choice or you read something wrong, the reason I did it is because I read this wrong. Okay, well, that's not excusable, and that's something we can work on. So I hope that clarifies a little bit. So I want to reiterate that middle part of our tagline. Stop making excuses. When it's time to put up or shut up, there's no more making excuses of why you aren't going for something in the right spot if you haven't given your all. So maybe it's a little more relevant to say stop making reasons, stop giving reasons why. But stop making excuses is it's actually, I think because we're trying to make it an excuse is relevant. So, but in all reality, stop giving reasons why you aren't doing what you should be doing or aren't in the place in life that you should be in the place of. There are real reasons why things are happening or are the way they are. And we have to acknowledge those, overcome those, and say no more of that. That's not how I wanted to go, and I'm going to push on through it. Because in all reality, if you want something bad enough, you have to be willing to work hard enough at it. If you aren't willing to work hard enough at it, then you probably don't really want it as bad as you say you do. Now, I know there are circumstances when we have certain, maybe we're more afflicted with, like, we're more fearful of things, or we're a little more timid on stuff. We're just naturally timid people, and some people aren't. And so I know that's a little harder to overcome, but it is something that we are going to have to deal with, and we are going to have to push through if we want to get the results we want. If you want to become a better musician, and you want a job in music, or you want something else, then you have to go at it. There are no excuses why. We all have responsibilities, and I want to be clear about this. That doesn't mean that you negate your responsibilities in life and only focus on that, because then you're going to have a whole different set of problems. But it means if it's important enough to you, when the time comes to work on your craft, then you work as hard as you can to the best of your ability and the best of your effort. as much as you can, because you can't afford for that. And I'm speaking in that music context. If you can't afford to not do that, if music is going to be a part of your life, a big part of your life. If you're in a sport and maybe you're not a starter, but you want to become a starter. If you're not willing to put in the work, the extra work, especially the extra work, because usually the person in front of you is not only working hard, but they're more skilled at it. So if you're not willing to put in extra work than normal practice time in the weight room, in skill development, before practice, after practice, off season, if you're not willing to do that, then you probably don't really want to be a starter as much as you should. Because as a coach, as a former player, the time for practice, especially in a team sport, there's not a lot of individual practice, individual development on the day-to-day, especially during the season. When you're going through practice in the middle of the season, you are working on team cohesion, making sure that you have a game plan for the next game you're playing, the next team you're playing, that you're ready for it. And you don't have a lot of time to just work on individual skills. So that means if you want that individual time, you want those extra reps, then you got to come in before practice, after practice, days when you're not practicing, the off season, weight room. You got to put in that work if you want it. If you're at a job and you want to move up, or you want a better job, or you want to raise, you have to be willing to do everything that's needed to get that promotion, or to get that raise, or to get that new job. If you are just, buying your time and saying, I'm just going to stay in this job and I'm going to do the minimum, and because I've worked here for 3 years, I deserve a raise. No, you don't deserve a raise. And I'm saying that, and this might be a little controversial for some people, or they don't like to hear, but just because you are at a place doing the minimum of your job requirements does not mean that you deserve a raise. All that shows is that you can do the job you're doing. We have, in California here, people are getting raises every year anyway. It seems like. I think this next coming year, minimum wage stops at $15 an hour. For just the California state wage. I know in different cities it's a little bit more. But they've been getting raises every year for the last 5 or 6 years. So if you just stayed, what you made 5 or 6 years ago, you're making, $3 or $4 more than that, because some are 50-cent raises, some are dollar raises. But that's just because you've been in the same position. If you want more responsibility and you want that, then you have to prove that you're worth that responsibility. That means the job that you're in, you need to put more effort in, take on responsibility on your own, or ask for more responsibility, ask what you can do to be seen, to achieve those goals, and prove to the people who make those decisions that you're worth the extra money that they're going to pay you, or you're worth the time to train to give this even more responsibility to for a promotion. You don't just get it because you've been there for a long time. Because if you've never gotten any extra responsibility, you've never taken anything more on your shoulders, and you've been there for 5 or 6 or 7, 10 years, you've probably already proven to them that you're just going to be that minimum requirement worker and really don't want any extra responsibility. And sometimes we have to step out of our comfort zone and ask, maybe you have been giving that extra effort and you have been taking on more responsibility on your own. No one's been telling you to. Sometimes we are the ones that have to go and say, hey, for a little bit now, I've been doing this extra. I know it's not in the job description, but I know it's been helping. I would like to be compensated for that. Or I was wondering if there's a way that you could maybe give me a raise for this extra work I've been doing, because I plan to keep on doing it. Or maybe you need to come out and say, hey, I know that I've been kind of a minimum requirement worker for a while now, but I'm ready to step up and take on more responsibility. And I want to prove to you that I'm capable of that. What could I do in order to prove that to you? What are things that I could take off my supervisor's plate and start doing to prove to you that I want to take on more responsibility, and I'm looking to move up in status and in my wages. We have to be willing to take that step. It's uncomfortable because a lot of people don't want to have that conversation. But I tell you what, there are a lot of employers out there who are more than willing to give people raises, but also aren't going to be the ones that bring it up. Why? Because it costs them more money. I mean, that's one reason. It's going to cost them more money to pay you. But if they're a successful business, they're also not opposed to paying you that. Not opposed to paying you what you're worth. But they also want people to be bold enough to ask for it. Because those are the go-getters. Those are the people who are bought into the company, and they say, hey, I don't want to leave, but I've been doing this, and this for a while now, and I'd like to have a raise. I haven't had one in a while, and I'd like to be paid what I'm worth and what I'm doing. And that's okay to ask for. You got to do it respectfully, and you got to do it with honesty and integrity, but it's okay to do. If you're on a diet or you're trying to work out, if you're really not willing to put in the effort to eat better or go to the gym more, if it's going to the gym, or doing different types of workouts, if you're not willing to put in the actual work to have results, then you really don't want to lose weight or don't want to be on this diet or don't want to get in better shape. And you can make every excuse in the world, oh, I don't have time or all this stuff. If you really, really wanted it, you'd make time for it. In this day and age, we all either spend too much time on our phones or too much time watching TV. There's always a half hour, an hour to where we could work out. We're always eating food, whether it's good for us or bad for us. You're either going to make healthier choices when you eat or you're not. And that's the truth of the matter. You can make any excuse, oh, it was just easier to go to the drive-thru and pick up this. It's just easier to go to Taco Bell or to Chipotle, any of this. Yeah, it is easier. But that's also why you're never going to give the real effort, the old college try at a diet or working out, because when it's worth the time and effort, it's never easy. It just isn't. You have to spend time developing that routine, developing that habit of eating better or working out, working hard, whatever it may be. You have to develop that, and that takes time, effort, and hard work. It's not easy. And no one said it was going to be easy. So when you're doing this, you need to, especially if you're in that job situation or you're an athlete who wants to get more playing time, or you're maybe a musician who wants to be a better musician, you have to be coachable. I've talked to him about it before. You be coachable, and you have to work hard, and you have to be relentless in your pursuit. If this is really what you want, then you have to go out. You have to go for it. There is no stopping with this. When it gets tough, there's no stopping it. And then once you get there, you have to work even harder to keep it that way. Especially if you're an athlete, we've always told, once you get to that starting position, you need to work harder, because there's always someone behind it who wants it. There's always someone behind you who wants that job, who is ready to take your spot in a second if you're willing to slack off. I mentioned before at the beginning of this episode that this whole episode was kind of sparked and inspired by a conversation with my wife. And I know she wasn't trying to, but that's the way I took this, the way I interpreted it. But Britt, my wife, basically challenged me and told me to either put up or shut up. She said, really, if this is what I want my career, my ministry to be, and that being an FCA, because it is a fundraising. I have to raise funds in order to be paid. I have to get support. I have to get partners on who are willing to support me, who are willing to help fund the ministry of FCA in the job description I have. She said, basically, if this is really where I want my career and my ministry to be, then show her. And basically, I can't just talk about it and glorify it all the time just with my words. I have to either put up or shut up. And basically, if you're not going to do it, then shut up about it and do something different. Now, those weren't her words, but this is the way I'm interpreting it. And that's why it sparked this podcast episode. And I'd like to say that I've never given her a reason to doubt me or given her a reason to not believe that I can do something. But for a lot of different things, I've talked a big game for a while now. And, there's times I've said I want to stop drinking soda, or I want to get in better shape, or I even said it on this podcast that I want to be in the best shape of my life by the time I'm 40. Well, my 40th birthday came and went, and I didn't really, live up to that goal. And I have no reason. Well, I have lots of reasons why, and none of them are good. I have no excuse for any of it. Nothing's excusable, but the reasons I haven't been there are all poor. There's no reason that will justify why I didn't go all out and get in the best shape of my life before I was 40. There just isn't. And so I'm going to leave that there. But the craziness of it all in this during this conversation, and especially afterwards, is in this context of ministry. If this is where God is calling me to be, then won't He bless this journey? Won't He make a way for me to be fully funded and meet the people I need to do so the ministry can grow? It doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it means that if I'm willing to put in the work, won't He make a way for it to happen? And the answer is absolutely. It might not always be on my timeline. It might not always be as easy as I'd like it to be, but if this is where He's calling me to be, He's not calling me to be there so He can, watch me fail, then point His finger at me and laugh. That's not the type of God that we serve. If this is where He's calling me to be, then I need to put in the work. I know that this may be a new way to think about it for some of you, but in some, if not all, or most circumstances in your life, especially that require action, God is waiting for you to make that first step. In the same way I feel like He's waiting for me to really step out and go for this and really start hitting the ground running on getting funds and making partners to get this ministry up and running. But it's not just that first step. He may be waiting for you to take a few steps after that as well. But you need to do them in faith, and that this is where He has called you to be. And I know that He's going to bless my actions if I do that. If I have the faith and I'm working hard and I'm doing it with all belief that this is where He is calling me, and I'm doing it for Him and not for me, then yeah, I believe He's going to bless my actions. One thing that I've heard a lot, it was kind of one of those things that as a team in FCA, as the actual ministry team in our region, in our area, that we'd get together and we'd say it probably once a meeting, and we usually had meetings once a week. But like I said, in my short time in ministry, I heard plenty this phrase, and the phrase is, you need to work like it all depends on you, but you need to pray like it all depends on God. And that's huge. And it's always been it's always been something that's stuck with me. It's kind of drawn me back to different times when I've wondered why God isn't making things happen. It's like, well, what's my effort like? What am I really doing? Am I working like it's all depending on me? Am I giving that kind of effort? Like if I don't stop, or if I stop, then this ministry stops, which isn't the case, because the ministry is God's ministry. So I want to make that clear too. Like I don't actually mean that the ministry or anything that deals with it all depends on me, but I need to work in that way. Because I'm working for God and I'm working for his kingdom. I'm doing things for him and not for me and not for man and not or anyone else. But I'm doing it for the Lord. And if I'm working that hard, but praying like it all depends on him, then I don't believe I can lose on that. And it's always something that's brought me back to reality, knowing that, okay, it doesn't all depend on me, but I'm also not giving it the effort that it should be. So the meaning of that to me, like to get back, is you do the work to the best of your effort and abilities and for God, and he will take care of the rest. The analogy I have is I can plant a seed and I can water it, but only God can make it grow. And there's actually a verse in 1 Corinthians, and Paul's talking to them, and he's talking about ministry, really. But I do believe it's relevant to all these other things I was talking about, all these other areas. Because, maybe planting a seed is planting that seed in your boss's head about a raise or more responsibilities, or your coach about working harder or wanting extra reps. But, or a musician about working harder and just making time for stuff. But in all reality, the talent we have, or the positions that are opened up to us, or the maybe the heart of your boss who's willing to put in a little bit more responsibility on you and give you that raise or that promotion. For those of us who have faith, we know that that's God opening doors for us. And so in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 6-8, Paul's talking to the Corinthians, and he says, I planted, Apollos watered, but God was causing the growth. So then, neither one of us who plants nor the one who waters is anything, but God who causes the growth. Now he who plants and he who waters are one, but each will receive his own reward according to his own labor. And so he's saying that, I planted the seed. I came and I talked about Jesus. Apollos, the gentleman he was talking about here, Apollos came and he kept working with you, kept showing you the way to love each other and treat each other, and that. So he was doing the watering, but only God made hearts change. Only God made the church in Corinthians grow. In the same way here, if the ministry that I'm going to be doing in FCA is really where God is calling me to be, I need to plant the seed. I need to water. Basically, I need to do all the work. And I just need to sit back and watch God grow it. While I'm continuing to plant seeds and water that ministry in the efforts that I can, the things that I can control, only God can control how this ministry works. And that means the partners that I get, that means the schools and the huddles that I'm in charge of when I get that responsibility. Only God can make those grow for his kingdom. My job is just to tend the earth. So, again, I need to put up or shut up. And there's probably some of you out there who are listening, and I know that it might not hit you right. It might hit the nail on the head. But I'm willing to bet there's some of you out there who have either been in the same situation with something in their lives or are in it now. But if there's something out there that you feel God calling you to do, he's giving you a skill, a talent, a desire, a calling. If that is where you're called to be and you know it and you feel it and or if there's a job opportunity out there, or a promotion or something that you want, in like for you, for the betterment of your family, then if you want it, you have to go for it. You have to take an uncomfortable step, make that step, and get after it. I just had a thought real quick. I said how God is in most cases probably waiting for us to make that step. In that same way, as I mentioned earlier, just to connect them, sometimes your boss is waiting for you to take that first step too. Because sometimes your boss doesn't have the time to try and, throw darts at, proverbial darts at people, seeing if it's going to hit the mark or if it's going to hit a bullseye. Like, oh, there's the one that's going to, who's willing to step up. No, they have to do business as usual, and they have to wait for the right person to present themselves in a lot of cases. So to kind of draw those two together, God's waiting for you to make that first step. Sometimes your coach or your teacher or your boss is wanting you to make that first step as well. Or maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your spouse. They want you to take that first step and be a leader in your family, or when you take that first step into a new career for the betterment of your family. But it's always on you to take that first step. It's not on anyone else to give you that first step. So, like I said, we need to stop making excuses. We need to put up or shut up. I'm voting right now for putting up. Let's get after the fight. Let's get off the sidelines. Stop making excuses and get in the game. Thanks so much for listening. We'll see you next week. Peace.
Get in the game. Thank you for listening to the Get in the Game podcast. Please take a second to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. That's the best way to support us. Find us on YouTube and subscribe for more content. If you would like for us to pray for you, or if you have topics that you would like us to tackle in upcoming episodes, email us at getinthegamepodcast@gmail.com. That's getinthegamepodcast@gmail.com. Or hit us up on Twitter and Instagram at getinthegamepc. If you've experienced getting off the sidelines and getting into the game yourself, please let us know. And remember, it's time to get in the game.